The Taraki battlecruiser hovered over the smoldering remains of what had once been Sydney, Australia. Commander Vrex stood at the observation deck, his four eyes scanning the devastated landscape with cold satisfaction. 6 months had passed since the Taraki Dominion had arrived in Earth's orbit with their armada of warships. 6 months since humanity had put up their pathetic resistance. 6 months since the formal surrender of the last human government. Status report. Vrex demanded, his scaled skin reflecting the dim light of the command center. Lieutenant Mesra approached, data tablet in hand. Resource extraction is proceeding ahead of schedule, Commander. Human resistance has been minimal and ineffective. Our containment centers are at optimal capacity. Vrex nodded, a gesture he had adopted from studying human behavior. And the anomalies. Mesra hesitated. 7 more communication relays went offline in Sector 17. Engineering suspects equipment failure due to Earth's higher-than-expected humidity levels. 17 relays in 2 weeks is not equipment failure, Vrex said, his voice lowering to a dangerous tone. What aren't you telling me, Lieutenant? There have been rumors, sir. Among the lower ranks, some claim to hear strange rhythmic sounds before the outages, like heartbeats, but artificial. Vrex dismissed this with a wave of his hand. Superstition. The humans are defeated, their military infrastructure destroyed, their leaders captured. What remains is merely cleanup. But as he turned back toward the viewport, Vrex couldn't suppress the uneasy feeling that something was watching from the shadows, something waiting. In the ruins of Brisbane, Maya Chen moved silently through the abandoned subway tunnels. Once a quantum physicist at Australia's leading research facility, she now wore the dirt and grime of someone who had spent months evading capture. Her backpack contained her most precious possession, a prototype quantum transmitter, salvaged from her lab before the Taraki bombed it. She checked her watch, an ordinary-looking timepiece that concealed technology the aliens couldn't detect. The small vibration confirmed she was on schedule. 3 more tunnels to navigate. Then she'd reach the meeting point. Hold it right there, a voice called from behind her. Maya froze, her hand instinctively moving toward the makeshift weapon at her hip. Maya Chen. Turn around slowly. She complied, facing a tall woman in tattered military fatigues. The stranger's face was half concealed by shadows, but Maya could see the Australian Army insignia on her worn jacket. Captain Samantha Drake, or what's left of Australian Special Forces. The woman said, Dr. Emerson sent me to escort you the rest of the way. Verification code. Maya asked cautiously. Drumbeat Alpha 7 Echo. Maya relaxed slightly. Lead the way, Captain. They moved deeper into the tunnel system, following a path that seemed random to Maya, but clearly made sense to Drake. After nearly an hour of silent navigation through increasingly narrow passages, they reached a heavy steel door built into the tunnel wall. Drake placed her palm on what looked like a rusty metal plate. A soft blue light scanned her hand, and the door opened with a hydraulic hiss that seemed impossibly loud in the quiet tunnel. Welcome to Echo Base, Drake said, gesturing for Maya to enter. Maya stepped through the doorway and gasped. What had appeared from outside to be perhaps a small bunker opened into a massive underground facility. Hundreds of people moved purposefully through a space that resembled a cross between a military command center and a high-tech research lab. How is this possible? Maya whispered. The Taraki orbital scans should have detected something this size. Quantum shielding. A deep voice answered. Maya turned to see a tall, distinguished man with silver hair and a neatly trimmed beard approaching. Adapted from your own research, Dr. Chen. Dr. Emerson, Maya said, recognizing the former head of Australia's Defense Science Organization. You actually built it. We built the prototype, Emerson corrected. But we need you to perfect it. Come, there's much to show you. As they walked through the facility, Emerson explained how Echo Base was one of 12 similar installations hidden around the world, each shielded from Taraki detection systems using early applications of Maya's quantum field theories. The Tereki think they've won, Emerson said. They believe our surrender was complete, our resistance broken. They don't realize we've been planning for something like this for years. Planning for alien invasion? Maya asked skeptically. Planning for any existential threat, Emerson clarified. Asteroid impacts, nuclear war, pandemic, or yes, alien invasion. Operation Silent Drumbeat was conceived as humanity's fail-safe. If conventional defense failed, we would appear to surrender, only to strike back when the enemy least expected it. They entered a vast circular chamber dominated by a holographic display of Earth. Red dots indicated Tereki bases and extraction facilities. Blue dots, fewer in number but growing, represented hidden human installations. We've spent 6 months gathering intelligence, sabotaging their operations in ways they attribute to equipment failure, and preparing our counterstrike, Drake explained. But we've hit a wall with the quantum transmitter network. Without it, we can't coordinate a global response. That's where you come in, Emerson said, turning to Maya. Your prototype transmitter is the key to our next phase. With a functioning quantum network, we can coordinate attacks across all resistance cells worldwide, completely undetectable by Tereki communication monitoring. You want to launch a counteroffensive? Maya asked. With what? The Tereki have orbital superiority, advanced weapons. They have technology, Drake interrupted. We have something more powerful. We have desperation, ingenuity, and the home field advantage. Emerson led Maya to a laboratory where her transmitter was already being studied by a team of scientists. We've reverse-engineered some of their technology as well. Combined with your quantum transmitter, we believe we can not just fight back, but win. How long until we're ready? Maya asked, already examining the equipment. That depends on you, Emerson replied. Every day we wait, more humans are processed in their containment centers. More of Earth's resources are stripped away. We need the network operational within 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Maya exclaimed. I spent years developing the theoretical framework alone. The prototype was months away from field testing when they invaded. You'll have help, Drake said, gesturing to the scientists. And motivation. Emerson's tablet beeped. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. The Tereki have accelerated their processing schedule. They're emptying the Melbourne Containment Center tomorrow. 5,000 people being shipped off-world as labor. My family's in Melbourne, Maya whispered. I know, Emerson said quietly. We all have someone, Dr. Chen. That's why we fight. Maya looked around the lab, at the expectant faces of the scientists, at Drake's determined expression, at Emerson's quiet confidence. Then she set her jaw and nodded. 2 weeks. But I'll need everything you've got on Tereki communication systems. Already compiled, one of the scientists said, handing her a tablet. As Maya immersed herself in the work, Drake turned to Emerson. Do you think it's enough time? It has to be, Emerson replied. The Tereki are starting to notice patterns in our sabotage. Soon, they'll realize it's not equipment failure. And if they do, then we accelerate the timeline. Emerson looked at the holographic globe, at the scattered blue dots representing humanity's last hope. Operation War Drum doesn't require the entire network to begin, just enough to land the first blow. In his command center, Vrex reviewed the latest intelligence reports, 17 communication relays, 12 mining operations experiencing equipment failures, 5 transport ships reporting navigation errors that delayed shipments. Too many coincidences. Lieutenant Mesra, he called. I want full spectrum scans of all areas where we've experienced outages. Divert resources from the extraction operations if necessary. Sir, Central Command wants extraction rates maintained. Central Command isn't here, Vrex snapped. Something is happening, and I want to know what it is before I report to the Archon. As Mesra hurried away, Vrex turned back to the viewport. In the distance, storm clouds gathered over the horizon. A fitting metaphor, he thought, for the unease growing within him. In the labs beneath Brisbane, Maya worked without rest, her mind fully engaged with the quantum transmitter problem. The solution was tantalizingly close, a way to use the quantum entanglement properties of certain particles to transmit information instantaneously across any distance, undetectable by conventional means. "It's elegant," she explained to Emerson during one brief break. The Tereki use advanced but ultimately conventional communication systems. They monitor the electromagnetic spectrum, quantum fluctuations, even gravitational waves. But they have no way to detect or intercept entangled particle communications because the information doesn't travel through space. It simply exists in two places simultaneously. "And the transmission signature?" Emerson asked. "That's the beautiful part," Maya said, a tired smile crossing her face. "When the system activates, it creates a low-frequency resonance, a drumbeat. It's actually a quantum echo, but to human ears, it sounds like drums. A war drum, calling humanity to arms." 10 days later, Maya stood before the assembled leadership of Echo Base. "The primary network is ready. We can transmit to all 12 resistance hubs simultaneously. The secondary network needs another week, but we don't have another week," Drake finished, displaying a holographic image of massive Tereki ships entering Earth's atmosphere. "These aren't routine troop transports. They're colony ships. The Tereki are bringing in civilians. They're starting to settle." A grim silence fell over the room. "How soon can we begin?" Emerson asked quietly. Maya took a deep breath. "The system is operational now. Limited but operational. When activated, every resistance hub will hear the signal. Every human with a modified receiver will know it's time. Like a heartbeat, growing stronger." Emerson looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each section leader. "Then it's time to show the Tereki that Earth isn't defeated. It's time for humanity to sound the war drums." As Maya initiated the quantum transmitter, a deep, rhythmic pulsing filled the command center. It resonated through the walls, through the ground, through the very air. Not loud, but persistent, unstoppable. On the surface, in his command ship, Vrex suddenly straightened as his communication officer reported. "Sir, we're detecting unusual seismic activity, all sectors, simultaneously." "Pattern," Vrex demanded. "Regular, rhythmic, like a drumbeat, sir." And in that moment, Vrex understood the truth that had been nagging at him for months. The humans hadn't surrendered. They had merely been gathering their strength, waiting for the right moment. The war for Earth wasn't over. It was just beginning. The first attacks came in the dead of night. Across the globe, Tereki outposts reported the same phenomenon, a rhythmic vibration growing in intensity, followed by precision strikes from an enemy they couldn't see. Supply depots exploded. Communication arrays collapsed. Transport ships crashed under mysterious circumstances. In his command center, Commander Vrex's rage could barely be contained as report after report flooded in. 7 major installations lost in the first hour, Lieutenant Mesra reported, her normally composed demeanor shaken. 42 smaller outposts silent. 3 orbital shuttles destroyed during ascent. "How?" Vrex demanded, slamming his fist against the holographic display. "How are they coordinating these attacks? Our jamming fields disrupt all known human communication methods." "Unknown, Commander. But the pattern is consistent. First, the rhythmic vibrations, then the attacks. Some outposts report hearing what sounds like drumming before communications go dark." Vrex narrowed his eyes. "Show me the attack pattern." The holographic display shifted, highlighting the locations of all Tereki losses. What emerged wasn't a random distribution, but a strategic pattern, a methodical dismantling of their command and control structure. "They're isolating our forward bases from central command," Vrex realized, "cutting us into manageable segments." "Sir," a communication officer interrupted. "Archenzeth is demanding an update." Vrex suppressed a grimace. The Archon would not be pleased. "Prepare my direct line. and dispatch combat drones to all remaining installations. I want whatever is causing those vibrations found and destroyed." Beneath the ruins of what had once been London, General Marcus Hammond reviewed the first wave reports with grim satisfaction. Echo Chamber, the European equivalent of Echo Base, hummed with activity as personnel monitored the coordinated global assault. Phase 1 exceeding expectations, his aide reported. 87% of primary targets neutralized. Minimal resistance losses. Hammond nodded, his weathered face showing no emotion, though inwardly he felt a surge of hope for the first time in months. Before the invasion, he had commanded NATO's Rapid Response Force. Now he led Europe's resistance from this underground fortress. "And the quantum network?" he asked. "Fully operational. All 12 hubs are synchronized. The secondary network is coming online ahead of schedule. We're already receiving signals from resistance cells we didn't even know existed." On the main display, blue dots were multiplying across the world map, each representing a human resistance group now connected to the quantum network, each hearing the rhythmic call to action. "The Tereki will adapt," Hammond warned. "They're not fools. Prepare for Phase 2. In Brisbane, Maya Chen worked frantically to expand the quantum network. Each new node strengthened the signal. Each new connection brought more humans into the fight. The distinctive drumbeat resonance grew stronger, spreading through ground and water, a sound the Tereki couldn't block because it wasn't truly sound at all. It was quantum information taking physical form. Melbourne Resistance reports successful liberation of Containment Center 4, Captain Drake announced, entering the lab where Maya worked. 2,000 prisoners freed, including a group of scientists. Maya looked up sharply. "Names." Drake handed her a tablet, and Maya's hands trembled as she scrolled through the list. When she found what she was looking for, she closed her eyes briefly in relief. "Your parents are safe," Drake confirmed. "Being transported here now." "Thank you," Maya whispered. Then, collecting herself, "The network expansion. Ahead of schedule. The resistance in North America has brought 3 more quantum nodes online. Asia reports similar progress. The drumbeat is being heard everywhere now." The quantum transmitter had evolved beyond Maya's initial design. Now it didn't just allow secure communication. It had become a weapon in itself. The resonance frequency disrupted Tereki neural patterns, causing disorientation and confusion. The longer they were exposed, the more severe the effects. "They're vulnerable to it," Maya explained to Dr. Emerson as they reviewed the data. "Their neural structure is more sensitive to quantum fluctuations than ours. The drumbeat isn't just our rallying call. It's literally giving them migraines." Emerson smiled thinly. "Can we amplify it?" "We're working on directed quantum resonators now. Portable devices that can focus the effect. It won't kill them, but it could incapacitate an entire Tereki unit without firing a shot." Outside the Brisbane facility, in what remained of the city proper, the first public signs of resistance appeared. The distinctive drumbeat pattern, 3 slow beats, 2 quick, 3 slow, appeared as graffiti on walls. Humans who had lived in fearful compliance for months now moved with purpose, subtle acts of defiance multiplying. Tereki patrols found themselves ambushed by civilians wielding improvised weapons. Supply convoys disappeared. And always, the persistent rhythm grew stronger. In the Melbourne Liberation Camp, Dr. Chen's parents worked alongside other rescued scientists, manufacturing portable quantum resonators using scavenged Tereki technology. What had once taken Maya weeks of painstaking calibration now rolled off makeshift assembly lines by the hundreds. The resistance was no longer hiding. It was awakening, stretching, preparing to roar. On day 5 of the human counteroffensive, Vrex received the report he had been dreading. A Tereki science vessel had analyzed the mysterious vibrations and confirmed what he had suspected. This was no natural phenomenon. It was a communication system unlike anything in the Dominion's experience. "Quantum entanglement," the chief science officer explained. The humans have weaponized quantum mechanics in a way our scientists thought theoretically impossible. The information transfer is instantaneous and unblockable. The resonance pattern, the drumming, is merely a side effect, but one they've turned to their advantage. Can we disrupt it? Vrex demanded. Not with our current technology. We would need to locate and destroy every quantum transmitter simultaneously, but they appear to have redundant systems. Vrex paced the command deck, his mind racing. The Terraki had conquered 17 worlds before Earth, all with minimal resistance after the initial military engagement. None had demonstrated this level of coordinated resistance after apparent defeat. The Archon is dispatching the Fourth Fleet, Lieutenant Mesra reported quietly. 6 days until arrival. Vrex knew what that meant. The Fourth Fleet wasn't a rescue mission. It was a planet killer. The Dominion had determined Earth was more trouble than it was worth. Better to destroy it completely and harvest the ruins than deal with this unprecedented insurrection. We have 6 days to crush this resistance, Vrex announced to his command staff. Deploy all combat units. Level any human settlement showing signs of defiance. I want the leaders of this rebellion found and publicly executed. What followed was a brutal escalation. Terraki war machines descended on suspected resistance strongholds with overwhelming force. Cities already in ruins suffered further bombardment. The occupiers' previous restraint, motivated by the desire to preserve Earth's resources and workforce, vanished in a desperate attempt to regain control. But for every attack, the human resistance had already evacuated or prepared defenses. The quantum network gave them perfect intelligence, perfect coordination. The drumbeat grew louder, more insistent, driving the Terraki to distraction, while guiding human fighters with its rhythm. In North America, resistance forces led by former Marine Colonel Jasper Williams captured a Terraki weapon factory intact. Within hours, human engineers were reverse engineering alien energy weapons, adapting them for human use. In Russia, General Sokolov's resistance fighters emerged from the Siberian wilderness to reclaim Moscow in a single night, using the quantum resonance to disorient the Terraki defenders before a lightning assault. In Japan, Dr. Mizuki Tanaka perfected a drone system that could amplify the quantum drumbeat to debilitating levels, sending Terraki soldiers into neurological shutdown without firing a shot. And everywhere, ordinary humans who had lived in fear now found courage in the rhythmic pulse that seemed to echo from the Earth itself. The drumbeat became humanity's heartbeat, steady, unstoppable, growing stronger with each passing hour. On the night before the Fourth Fleet's arrival, representatives from all 12 resistance hubs gathered virtually through the quantum network. The holographic figures of humanity's remaining leaders stood in a circle, faces grim but determined. The Terraki Fourth Fleet carries planet-killer weapons. Dr. Emerson informed them. Our intelligence is certain. They arrive tomorrow, and they come not to reinforce but to destroy. Then we have no choice, General Hammond replied. We implement Operation Thunderclap immediately. Murmurs of concern spread through the gathering. The offensive is ahead of schedule, but still not complete, Colonel Williams objected. We've reclaimed perhaps 30% of our territory. The orbital platforms remain under enemy control. We no longer have the luxury of time. Maya Chen interjected. The quantum network is at full capacity. The resonators are deployed. We strike now, or we don't strike at all. Silence fell as the implications sank in. Operation Thunderclap was meant to be the final phase, a synchronized global assault to reclaim Earth in one decisive action. Launching it prematurely was a desperate gamble. All in favor? Dr. Emerson asked quietly. One by one, the leaders nodded their agreement. Then it's decided, Hammond concluded. Operation Thunderclap commences at dawn. May whatever gods still watch over humanity be with us all. As the leaders returned to their commands, Maya Chen made final adjustments to the quantum transmitter. The rhythmic pulse had become so familiar that most humans no longer consciously noticed it, but the Tereki remained tormented by its constant presence. "Will it be enough?" Captain Drake asked, watching Maya work. "It has to be," Maya replied simply. "Tomorrow, we turn the drumbeat into a roar." That night, as Vrex paced his command center waiting for the Fourth Fleet, a communication officer suddenly ripped off his headset, crying out in pain. "What is it?" Vrex demanded. "The drumming," the officer gasped. "It's changing, getting stronger." Throughout the command ship, Tereki personnel began to collapse, clutching their heads. Vrex felt it too, the once annoying rhythm now becoming an unbearable pounding that seemed to resonate within his skull. And then, through the pain, he heard the communication system activate on its own. A human voice, transmitted simultaneously to every Tereki communication device on and above Earth, spoke 4 words that sent a chill through Vrex's spine. "The war drums are thundering." Dawn broke over a world transformed. As the first rays of sunlight touched Earth's surface, Operation Thunderclap began, not with explosions or gunfire, but with silence. The persistent drumbeat that had tormented the Tereki for days suddenly stopped. The abrupt absence of the quantum resonance was more shocking than its presence had been. Throughout Tereki installations, confused soldiers looked at each other, momentarily relieved yet deeply unsettled. The silence lasted exactly 3 minutes, long enough for the Tereki neural systems to begin recovery, long enough for commanders to start issuing orders to take advantage of the respite. Then came the thunderclap. Every quantum resonator on Earth activated simultaneously at maximum amplitude. The resulting pulse wasn't just felt, it was experienced as a physical force, a tsunami of quantum distortion that overwhelmed Tereki neural pathways. Across the globe, Tereki soldiers collapsed, their nervous systems overloaded. In orbit, Tereki ships veered out of control as pilots convulsed at their stations. Defense systems went offline. Weapon platforms drifted, suddenly unmanned. And in that moment of vulnerability, humanity struck. Maya Chen monitored the quantum network from Echo Base's command center, watching as blue indicators spread across the global display like a rising tide. "Quantum pulse successful," she reported. 87% of Tereki forces incapacitated. Network holding stable at full amplitude. Dr. Emerson nodded grimly. "How long can we maintain it?" "The system will burn out in approximately 4 hours. After that, the resonators will be permanently damaged. Then we have 4 hours to win this war," Captain Drake said, checking her weapon. "All strike teams, commence operations." Across the planet, humanity emerged from hiding. In Australia, Echo Base deployed its reverse-engineered Tereki vehicles, now modified with human ingenuity. Captain Drake led a squadron of these hybrid war machines toward the Sydney Command Center, where Commander Vrex struggled to maintain control of his forces. In North America, Colonel Williams led a daring assault on the Tereki's primary orbital launch facility. His forces, armed with captured energy weapons and protected by portable quantum shields, overwhelmed the disoriented defenders in minutes. Launch platform secured, Williams reported through the quantum network. Initiating Phase 2. Within the captured facility, human engineers worked frantically to reprogram the Tereki's own orbital defense systems. One by one, the weapons platforms that had kept humanity pinned to the surface for 6 months turned their devastating firepower toward space, toward the approaching Fourth Fleet. In his command ship, Vrex fought through the debilitating pain of the quantum pulse, forcing himself to remain conscious through sheer willpower. Around him, his crew lay incapacitated, some suffering neural hemorrhaging from the intense resonance. "Emergency protocols," he gasped into his communication device. "All functioning units, protect the orbital defenses. Priority 1. But his orders went largely unheard. The few Tereki soldiers who remained functional were overwhelmed by the sudden, coordinated human assault. Installations that had stood secure for months fell in minutes. The careful occupation infrastructure collapsed like a house of cards. In orbit, the first vessels of the Fourth Fleet emerged from hyperspace, led by the massive dreadnought carrying Archon-Zeth himself. The Archon had come to personally oversee Earth's destruction. A defiant world that dared resist the Dominion could not be allowed to exist as an example to others. Orbital status, the Archon demanded as his ship entered Earth's system. Unusual readings, Archon, his navigator reported. We're detecting widespread communication outages on the surface. The occupation fleet appears to be in disarray. The Archon's expression darkened. Commander Vrex has failed. Prepare the planetary cleansing protocol. We will. His orders were cut short as the first orbital defense platform, now under human control, opened fire. The massive energy beam struck one of the Fourth Fleet's support vessels, cutting it in half. We're under attack, the tactical officer shouted, stunned. From our own defense platforms. More beams lanced out from Earth's orbit, targeting the incoming fleet with precision. The Tereki ships, unprepared for resistance at this stage, scrambled to raise shields and return fire. Impossible, the Archon hissed. How could they? Incoming transmission. The communication officer interrupted. From the surface. Against his better judgment, the Archon nodded for it to be played. The holographic display activated, showing the face of Dr. Emerson. Archon-Zeth, Emerson began, his voice calm and measured. Your invasion has failed. Your occupation forces are defeated. You face a choice now. Retreat or be destroyed. The Archon's rage was palpable. You dare threaten the Dominion. Your world will be reduced to ash. Look around you, Archon, Emerson replied. Your fleet is already burning. It was true. In the minutes since their arrival, the Fourth Fleet had lost 6 vessels to the captured defense platforms. More importantly, the fleet's formation was broken, ships scattering to avoid the precision fire coming from what should have been their own defenses. This is merely the beginning, Emerson continued. Even now, our forces are securing the remaining ground-based weapons, but it doesn't have to end in your annihilation. The Tereki Dominion can choose to leave Earth's system and never return. The Dominion does not retreat, the Archon spat. Then the Dominion will learn what it means to face humanity at war, Emerson said simply, and terminated the connection. On the surface, the battle reached its climax. Captain Drake's forces breached the Sydney Command Center, fighting through the few Tereki soldiers still capable of resistance. When they reached the central chamber, they found Commander Vrex alone, surrounded by his unconscious command staff. Vrex rose shakily to his feet as Drake entered, his hand on his sidearm. You've won nothing, he said, voice strained from fighting through the quantum resonance. The Fourth Fleet will reduce your world to atoms. Drake smiled grimly. Look up, Commander. She activated a holographic display showing the space battle. The Fourth Fleet was in disarray, multiple ships disabled or destroyed, the rest fighting a losing battle against their own defense systems. Impossible, Vrex whispered. No, Drake corrected. Inevitable. You thought you'd conquered us, but you only forced us to become stronger, more creative, more determined. In orbit, Colonel Williams led a team of EVA-suited fighters to board the Tereki flagship itself. Using the continuing quantum pulse as cover, they penetrated the vessel's outer defenses and fought their way toward the command deck. This is insanity, Williams' second-in-command muttered as they moved through the massive ship, boarding the enemy flagship. Sometimes insanity is exactly what you need, Williams replied. The Tereki understand conventional warfare. They don't understand humans. On the command deck, Archon-Zeth received the reports of boarders with disbelief that quickly turned to fear. Nothing in the Dominion's conquest of 17 worlds had prepared them for this level of audacity. For an enemy that refused to acknowledge defeat, that turned the invaders' own technology against them, that grew stronger in adversity rather than weaker. All ships, commence planetary bombardment immediately, the Archon ordered desperately. Target all human population centers, maximum yield. But the order came too late. Colonel Williams' team breached the command deck, quantum resonators at maximum amplitude. The Tereki command staff collapsed instantly, leaving only the Archon standing through sheer force of will. "Surrender," Williams demanded, weapon raised. The Archon drew himself up proudly. "The Dominion does not." Williams fired, the energy blast striking the Archon's shoulder rather than a killing shot. "That wasn't a request. The next one goes through your head. Surrender your fleet, or we'll take it from you piece by piece." In Brisbane, Maya Chen watched the orbital battle with growing concern. "The quantum network is reaching critical instability," she reported. "Resonators will begin failing in 20 minutes. Dr. Emerson nodded grimly. "Send the coded message to all strike teams. Operation Deadlock." It was their final contingency. If the Tereki refused to surrender, humanity would use the remaining quantum network capacity to send a specific resonance frequency that Maya had discovered during her research, a frequency that would trigger catastrophic feedback in Tereki power systems. "Are you sure?" Maya asked quietly. "It will destroy every Tereki ship and installation simultaneously. The death toll would still be less than what they planned for us," Emerson replied. "But let's hope it doesn't come to that." On the Tereki flagship, Colonel Williams watched as the Archon considered his options. The proud leader of a species that had conquered countless worlds now faced something entirely new, an inferior technology race that refused to accept defeat, that had turned the tables through sheer determination and adaptability. "How?" the Archon finally asked, his voice barely audible. "How did you do this?" Williams lowered his weapon slightly. "You thought conquering our armies meant conquering humanity. But humans aren't defined by our technology or our military strength. We're defined by our refusal to submit, by our creativity in crisis, by our ability to unite against existential threats." "The drumming," the Archon said. "The war drums, that was your doing." "A side effect that became a symbol," Williams acknowledged. "The rhythm of humanity's heartbeat, growing stronger even as you thought we were defeated." He raised his communication device. "Your forces on the ground have surrendered. Your fleet is crippled. Make the right choice, Archon." For a long moment, the fate of two species hung in the balance. Then, slowly, the Archon lowered himself to his command chair. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered, the words clearly painful to speak. "Cease all hostile actions." Across Earth, the remaining Tereki forces laid down their weapons. In orbit, the surviving ships of the Fourth Fleet powered down their weapon systems. After 6 months of occupation and 5 days of revolution, the war for Earth had ended. In Echo Base, Maya watched as the quantum network indicators began to fail, resonators burning out one by one as their components reached critical limits. But it didn't matter anymore. The network had served its purpose. Humanity had won. "Incoming transmission from Colonel Williams," the communication officer announced. "The Tereki have agreed to unconditional withdrawal from Earth's system." A cheer erupted throughout the command center. Dr. Emerson allowed himself a brief smile before raising his hand for quiet. "This isn't just victory," he reminded them. "This is responsibility. We've defeated a spacefaring empire with superior technology. The question now is, what do we do next?" Captain Drake, returning from Sydney with the captured Commander Vrex, had an answer. "We rebuild. We adapt. We take what we've learned from the Tereki, and we prepare, not just to defend Earth, but to take our place among the stars." Vrex, watching these humans celebrate their impossible victory, finally understood the fundamental error the Dominion had made. They had evaluated Earth based on its technology, its military capability, its resource value. They had failed to account for the intangible but decisive factor, the human spirit, unbreakable even in defeat, capable of turning adversity into advantage. 3 months later, Earth was transformed. Tereki technology, now understood and improved upon by human engineers, accelerated reconstruction efforts. The quantum network, rebuilt under Maya Chen's direction, connected humanity like never before. And in orbit, the first human ships constructed with reverse-engineered Taraki drive systems prepared to venture beyond the solar system. In what had once been Sydney's Central Plaza, now rebuilt and serving as the headquarters for Earth's unified defense force, Dr. Emerson unveiled a simple monument, a bronze sculpture of a drum with a single phrase inscribed below. They thought they had won, until they heard the war drums. Maya Chen, now heading Earth's Quantum Research Division, stood beside Captain Drake as they watched the ceremony. "Do you think they'll come?"